Hey folks, it's Nick Granville. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I wanted to talk about choosing the right guitar amp. I was watching a video today of Keith Williams, from 5 Watt World. If you guys don't know Keith, fantastic guitar channel on YouTube. You should go and check it out. It's really great. I've been following Keith's stuff for a long time and he's a cool guy. I really like Keith a lot. So but he was talking about what's the right amp and this kind of thing and how to choose the right amp, and it kind of got me reflecting on what I do and how I choose the right amp. Now the way I see it is I have 3 amps, 2 analog and 1 digital, and I ask questions about sort of the gig in my mind, and then these help me to decide which one I'm going to take to which gig, right? So the first question I ask is this a gig where we can make a fair bit of sound or not? So if you can make a normal kind of band kind of sound, then I'll be taking either my Deluxe or my Bassman, both by the Victoria Amp Company. Amazing amps. I've had them both for a long time, and they're amps for a lifetime, really. Which is how long I plan to be doing this, right? And if it's a gig where, you can't particularly make a lot of volume, like, say, a theatre show, which, pretty much is all the domain of modelers, then that's what I'm going to take as a modeler, right? I want the best tool for the job. Now, with my amps, I have a 20 watt combo, which is probably what I use 90% of the time. And then I have the Bassman, which is a 45 watt combo with 4 10-inch speakers. So a bigger sound, more volume when needed and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the modeler for its own thing. And I see the modeler as an amp, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. Next question I ask is, do we have a drummer on the gig or not? Right? If it's a gig without a drummer, like, say, I did a gig the other day for Radio New Zealand here, and it was guitar, bass, and saxophone. That was the gig, right? And we were playing jazz standards. Well, I take my little Tweed Deluxe, right? It's going to do the job. There's no need to take a big amp on that because there's no drummer, right? So it's not going to get loud. Really, all I need is a clean sound and a jazz guitar, and I'm away. Right, but then by the same token, if I'm playing with a heavy-handed drummer, well, the Tweed Deluxe will just get swamped. It'll get to that point where you won't be able to get a clean sound anymore because you're just having to keep, it's beyond its breakup point, and that's no fun. Believe me, you don't want that. So the thing I'm going for is matching it to the drummer and the band and the space that you're in, and the scenario. Right? What's the scenario? Where it becomes interesting is, say you're playing with a drummer and you're using in-ear monitors. Now I've got headphones on at the moment, but some gigs I'll take in-ear monitors as well. For the record, I hate wearing in-ear monitors. They're awful. It's just never a pleasant experience, right? But it's very rare that I have to use them. Some gigs I'll take them and I'll just put one in, and maybe I'll ask for vocals in it, and that's about it. The Sports Awards gig that I posted that video about the other day, I just had one in-ear in, and I had vocals in it, and I had piano because he was playing a keyboard. He didn't bring an amp, he just wanted to go direct. So without my in-ears, I'm not going to hear piano. So that was what I did, right? And then my amp I could hear in the other ear, and drums and bass and stuff like that, So, that worked quite well. But in that case, I did take my Bassman, but I probably could have taken my Deluxe, because therefore it's not really a matter of trying to compete with the band, right? I just need the amp to create the sound that I want. And for me, what I'm looking for out of any amp is I want to get it in the sweet spot. My Deluxe, that's the amp on 4. Any more than that, it's just more distorted. Any less than that, and it's kind of just pretty clean, whereas I like just a little bit of hair on it. It's not perfectly clean, like this kind of sound, right? Let's get that going. You can hear when I'm hitting it hard, it's just kind of compressing a little bit, going, that's kind of the sweet spot. Now that's the FM3, which is what I use for all these videos, because microphone, right? If I have a microphone in the room and I have an amp back there, the mic's going to be clipping like mad with the volume from my amp, and then my voice is going to, so FM3 every time. Right, so then the question I asked too, sometimes of all this stuff, and it made me think about this with some of the stuff Keith was getting into, why even use an amp, right? And for me, it's like, in a world where there's so much fake, I just rather use something that's real, right? I have 2 amazing guitar amps. Why not use them when I can, right? Now, sometimes they're not the best tool for the job, and so that's kind of the thing you have to do. But when they are, it's magic. And maybe it's 1% better, right? But that 1% is kind of worth it to me. And even if it's not to anyone else, that doesn't matter, right? Because the thing is, like, the more inspired I am to play, the audience may not know why it's better, but it's better, right? So that to me is like, when I can use an amp, I will. But only if I can get it to volume. Because that's one of the things, right? If I can only have an amp down as low as possible, like my Bassman on 2, it sounds like ass. It's horrible, right? I don't want to do that. That's not inspiring to play, Like a sound like this. Which is kind of just a pushed tube amp, right? That's kind of that's an amp in the sweet spot, you know what I mean? Probably a little bit past it, right? It's just kind of that edgy breakup. Gets a bit flabby in the bottom end, which is what they do, right? But yes, I'd rather use a modeler in that instance. So yeah, if nobody cares and nobody notices, then why do it? It's to make me happy, if nothing else. Do you know what I mean? And tube amps can be a pain in the ass. There are times when they're unreliable. The tubes die, they whatever, but whatever, you deal with it and you get on with it. It's real, right? And that's the thing. Like, I like the real. Whenever possible. But there are certain gigs where you just got to use a modeler. And so I treat the modeler just like an amp. I take the FM3 and I will take it and I'll use an FR, like a Fender FR10. It's my preferred one. But, I've used other ones and they're all good. Just some of the Red Sound stuff is pretty amazing. But I take those kind of stuff along and I use like the FR, and then I put that at low volume, so it's not, otherwise if I'm going to have it loud, I might as well just use an amp. But I kind of, sometimes I'll just use in-ears if I have to, but I hate in-ears, to be honest. I don't want to use those things. It's awful. It's not inspiring, right? Even worse if in-ears are in mono, right? Ugh, no. It's not kind of... It's really bizarre too, isn't it? Like gigs, like I've seen John Cordy talk about this, where he does like these wedding gigs. I don't do wedding gigs much anymore, like hardly ever. They're fun. I don't mind. I've done my fair share of them over the years. But he does these functions and wedding gigs where he can't bring an amp. Why not? Who says? The sound guy rule the world? And those, no. Why can't you bring an amp, right? Because an amp would sound great. And, if he brings the right amp, if he brings an amp that's too powerful for it, well, that's a problem. But also if he's playing too loud or drowning out the band, then, well, that's a problem too, right? But it's this whole idea of control that just gets... Anyway, don't get me started. Yeah, but I think if nobody cares, do it for you, right? And then the thing is, the audience responds to that. They can't tell you why it's better, but to them, they're noticing something different. So is this scenario where a modeler can sound better? Absolutely. And anybody who tells you it doesn't is wrong, right? I would, any day of the week, rather have a modeler than have an amp that's barely on. My little Tweed Deluxe, if it was on, like on its lowest setting, there's no inspiration in that. I'd rather have a modeler. So the theatre shows that I do from time to time, I did We Will Rock You last year. And that's a prime example, so I talk about that one a fair bit. But I've done a lot of shows. I've done Hairspray, I've done Les Mis, I've done Mamma Mia twice, I've done Jesus Christ Superstar 2 or 3 times, The Wedding Singer, all of the major ones I've done pretty much. But We Will Rock You is a prime example. There are about 40 headset mics. Those microphones that come around here? on stage. Yeah, but, like people everywhere with all these different things going on and stuff. And I got to play this. You can't be doing that with an amp that's like roaring with all those headset microphones on. It's going to be feeding back everywhere. So the only option really to do that and get that kind of sound, like a screaming amp like that, is to have a modeler. So I took my FM3 and a bunch of pedals, which is what I mostly do, right? And then I had headphones because we weren't seeing most. Oh no, actually I had in-ears. I had in-ears and I had a pack because I had to go on stage and do the Bohemian Rhapsody solo and the solo for Who Wants to Live Forever. I had to go out on the stage with my guitar. Play those. I used the DGT SE for that gig because it was just perfect, right? Yeah, and you can't be having an amp in that situation, right? So what they did was they had the drummer in a booth and he had his own little things because electric drums suck, so he used real drums, of course. And then they made a little booth for him with a little screen so he could see the rest of the band. And then bass was direct. Both guitars were direct, and then there were 3 keyboard players who were direct. And then they had a booth at the other side of the stage where they had the percussionist, and he had timpani and snare drums and cymbals, and he had a gong and all these shakers and all this different stuff. They had a little area for him so he could sort of be that. So really the only thing on stage was a little bit of drum wash from kind of what was overspill. And what of course was going on in the front house. So all you had was these 40 headset microphones going, and even then they were still getting feedback because maybe a singer would go too far forward next to the front house speakers, or there were monitors so they could hear themselves. So in that instance, like a modeler is just better, and that's why pretty much all theatre shows now that's what they do. Right? Would I have liked to have taken an amp? Absolutely. Would it have been better if I could have had an amp in a booth down below the stage somewhere, with a long cable down to it and just crank the shit out of it? And probably not. Maybe would I have noticed the difference in my in-ears at that point anyway? I don't know. So to me, it's like the whole question about what gear I bring, amps wise, is related to the scenario. What size venue? Who am I playing with? What am I doing? What kind of volume am I going to need to get it into the sweet spot? Do you know what I mean? And I play super dynamically anyway. I'm not going to be like blasting people. Like if I'm playing a rhythm part, I tuck it into the band. If it's a solo part, I make sure it jumps out. So it's sort of, I'm self-mixing, if you will. Yeah. Anyway, that's just kind of my take. Hey, let me know. Drop me a comment below and let me know what's your favorite amp, and if you have more than one, how do you choose between them? Which one you take? Do you not use amps at all? If you're fully into the digital thing and that's the winning formula for you, then let me know, and let me know which ones you're using and why. Like, I'm curious. There's a bit of a discussion to be had around this stuff, I think, Yeah, it's an interesting thing, We're just trying to figure it out. My opinion might change in a year's time, because who knows, I might get some other gig that requires a different thing. And in which case, then you do that, right? You do whatever you got to get done. You do whatever you got to do to get the job done. Yeah. Hey, look, thanks for watching. Please like. That really helps. Please subscribe. It's one of the best things you can do. Buy me a coffee's link below. PayPal's link below if you want to support the channel. Nobody's making a lot of money doing what I do. So any of that stuff just helps me to keep doing it, because all this stuff costs money. Don't message me on my website if you see that on any of the older videos, because it's gone at the moment. I'm going to try and get it back. I'm working on it. If not, I'm going to set up a new website. But best thing, hit me up on the social medias if you want to get in touch. Facebook and Instagram are the ones I use. And yeah, otherwise I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.